Henry Carter was a 93-year-old man who carried his years with quiet pride. His back was slightly hunched, and his walk was slow, but there was a spark in his blue eyes that told stories of resilience and a life well lived. A World War II veteran, Henry had seen the world at its worst and had fought for the values he believed in. His small town of Elmwood respected him, not just for his service, but for his kindness and integrity. Every Saturday morning, Henry would take a slow walk to the park near the main street. He loved sitting on the old bench under a sprawling oak tree, watching kids play, people walk their dogs, and the town go about its day. On this particular Saturday, Henry decided to wear his red MAGA hat. He had strong opinions about his country and believed in speaking up, even at his age. For him, the hat wasn't about politics alone. It symbolized his hope for America's future. Henry didn't anticipate that this simple choice would stir trouble. The morning was bright and crisp. Henry shuffled to the park with his trusted cane, his hat firmly on his head. As he settled onto the bench, he pulled out a folded newspaper from his jacket. The world had changed so much since his younger days, and while he didn't agree with everything happening, he still cared deeply about his country. Nearby, a group of bikers roared into the park's parking lot. There were 4 of them, big, rough-looking men with tattoos covering their arms. Their bikes gleamed in the sunlight, and the sound of their engines made heads turn. Henry noticed them but paid little attention. He had encountered all kinds of people in his life and wasn't easily rattled. The bikers parked their motorcycles and began to gather around a picnic table not far from where Henry sat. They laughed loudly, and their conversations carried over the gentle hum of the park. It wasn't long before one of them, a man named Jake, noticed Henry's red hat. Jake nudged his buddy Vince and pointed toward Henry. "Hey, check out the old man over there. What's he trying to prove with that hat?" Jake's voice was laced with mockery, and the others chuckled. Henry continued reading his paper, unaware of the bikers' growing interest. After a few minutes, Jake stood up and walked toward him, followed by the others. They stopped a few feet from Henry's bench, their shadows looming over him. Jake spoke first. "Hey, old man, what's with the hat? You trying to start something?" Henry looked up slowly. His face remained calm, but his eyes locked onto Jake's. "I'm not trying to start anything," he said firmly. "I'm just sitting here, enjoying the morning." Jake crossed his arms. "That hat, you know what it represents, don't you? Not everyone around here likes seeing that." Henry leaned forward slightly, resting both hands on his cane. "I know exactly what it represents. It represents my right to believe in what I choose. I fought for that right, and I'm not about to let anyone tell me otherwise." The bikers exchanged glances. They weren't expecting such a direct response. Vince laughed nervously and said, "Man, you've got guts for an old-timer." Jake wasn't ready to back down. "You think wearing that hat makes you some kind of hero?" he sneered. Henry straightened up, his voice steady and unwavering. "I don't need a hat to remind me of who I am or what I've done. This hat is just cloth and thread. But the values behind it, freedom, choice, and respect, those are worth standing up for." The park had grown quieter as people noticed the confrontation. A few onlookers stopped to watch, unsure of what might happen next. Henry's words seemed to strike a chord with one of the bikers, a younger man named Pete. He had joined the group a year ago, but deep down, he admired people who stood by their beliefs. Pete stepped forward and said, "Maybe we should leave him alone. He's not hurting anyone." Jake glared at Pete but didn't respond. Instead, he turned back to Henry. "You've got a lot to say for someone who can barely stand." Henry smiled faintly. "Son, I may be old, but don't mistake age for weakness. I've seen more, done more, and lost more than you can imagine. If you think you're scaring me, you're wasting your time." Pete's words and Henry's calm defiance began to shift the mood. Vince scratched his head awkwardly, muttering, "Let's just go, Jake. This is pointless." Jake hesitated, then took a step back. "Fine," he said gruffly. "Enjoy your day, old man." The bikers turned and walked away, though Jake's pride was clearly bruised. As they mounted their bikes, Pete lingered behind. He approached Henry and said, I'm sorry about that. Not all of us are like him. Henry looked up and nodded. It takes courage to stand apart from the crowd. Don't lose that. Pete smiled faintly before joining the others. The roar of their engines soon faded into the distance. The park slowly returned to its usual rhythm. Henry sat back on the bench, his newspaper forgotten in his lap. A few people approached him to express their support, but Henry waved them off politely. He didn't want attention or praise. He just wanted to enjoy his morning. As he gazed at the trees swaying gently in the breeze, Henry thought about how much the world had changed. Yet, he was reminded that some things never would. The courage to stand up for one's beliefs, the importance of respect, and the power of quiet dignity. Henry tipped his hat to no one in particular and whispered to himself, "Still standing after all these years." And with that, he picked up his paper and resumed reading, as if nothing had happened. That's the story, friends. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a pleasure sharing it with you all. Don't forget to comment below and let me know where you're watching from. It's always fun to see the global reach of these stories. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button for more amazing stories, tips, and tricks. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.